Let me start with one number: 79%. That's how much of the ball England had against Ghana on June 23, 2026, in Foxborough, Massachusetts. It is the highest possession share recorded by any team that failed to score in a World Cup match in the last 60 years. I want you to sit with that for a second because we're about to spend the next several minutes figuring out what that number actually means. Here's the final stat line: England, 19 shots. Ghana, 1 shot. The result, 0. Now, on the surface, that looks like one of two stories. Either England were unlucky and Ghana parked the bus and got away with it, or there's something else going on here that the shot count doesn't capture. After the final whistle, Ghana's manager Carlos Queiroz walked into the press conference and gave the world a third option. He looked at the FIFA media official sitting beside him and said, "I'm not sure VAR is still working in the World Cup. We still have VAR, it's working." Then, talking about a specific incident late in the game, he said it plainly: "It was a clear penalty, if not a red card. We have no doubts about that." And then the line that's been clipped and replayed across every football account on the planet since. Once again, VAR went for a coffee. So that's the headline everyone's running with. England got lucky, Ghana got robbed, case closed. I don't think it's that clean. So today I'm going to walk through 3 different ways to read this match, using only what was actually said and what actually happened on the pitch. And I want you to decide for yourself which one holds up by the end. Let's name the 3 theories first, because once you understand the categories, you can weigh the evidence properly. Theory 1. England were simply the better team, and Ghana's complaints afterward are a coach managing the story rather than describing reality. Call this the dominance theory. Theory 2. This was a clean officiating failure, full stop, a missed call that cost Ghana a result they had earned. Call this the VAR failure theory. Theory 3, and this is the one I'm going to build for you today. This wasn't a story about England dominating or about one bad VR decision in isolation. This was a deliberate defensive performance from Ghana that very nearly delivered a result, and the margin between a draw and a Ghana win sat inside 2 specific contested decisions that both went England's way. Call this the margins theory. Let's take theory 1 first, and let's be fair to it, because it has real evidence behind it. England's coach Thomas Tuchel didn't come out and complain about officiating at all. Instead, he talked about how his team had been surprised by Ghana's setup. He said Ghana lined up in a 4-5-1 and called their performance one of the most physical that he's seen in the tournament. His exact words were, "They defended with a lot of determination, a lot of discipline." That's not the language of a man who thinks his team was robbed. That's a coach acknowledging his opponent did something specific and did it well. And the underlying numbers back up the case that England created the chances they needed to win comfortably. 19 shots is not a fluke number. That's a team generating attempt after attempt. Jude Bellingham himself, after the match, said England were frustrated a little bit with how they defended, how they set up. His full quote was, "They got exactly out of the game what they played for. Couldn't quite break them down, even with all corners, all the possession, all the shots on goal from distance." Notice what Bellingham is actually saying there. He's not blaming the officials. He's saying England simply couldn't find a way through a well-organized defense. So the dominance theory has a real foundation. England's own captain-level voices were describing a finishing problem, not a robbery. Here's where it runs into trouble, though. A finishing problem and an officiating problem aren't mutually exclusive. You can have both in the same match. The dominance theory only works if you ignore the second half of the story entirely, which is exactly what Theory 2 is built around. Theory 2, the VAR failure theory. Let's get specific about what actually happened, because VAR went for coffee is a great soundbite, but it's not actually a description of the incident itself. In the 78th minute, Ghana's Abdul Fatawu won a foot race against England midfielder Eberechi Eze down the sideline. Fatawu got the ball forward to substitute Prince Adu. Before Adu could get a shot away, he was challenged from behind by England defender Ezri Konsa. Ghana appealed for a penalty. The referee did not award one, and VAR did not intervene to overturn that call. That's not the only flashpoint involving Adu either. Earlier in the match, Adu had gone down in a collision with England goalkeeper Jordan Pickford. The referee's call there was a free kick to England, not a penalty to Ghana. Two separate incidents, same player, both decisions falling England's way. Queiroz was unambiguous about how he read the Konsa challenge specifically. Not maybe, not I think. His words were, "We have no doubts about that." A manager who's just trying to spin a bad result for the cameras usually hedges. Queiroz didn't hedge on this one detail at all. But here's the honest caveat, and I think it matters. Queiroz also said this: "I'm sorry for my sarcasm, but if I say these kind of things seriously, they punish me, so I hope you understand that I'm joking." That's a manager being deliberately careful with his language to avoid FIFA disciplinary action for criticizing officials while still making sure his actual point landed. It's strategic phrasing. It doesn't make the underlying complaint false, but it does mean we should treat the delivery and the substance of his comments as two different things. So Theory 2 has real weight too. A specific, nameable incident, a direct quote with no hedging on the call itself. But Theory 2 on its own also has a gap. It treats the match as if one missed call is the entire story, when the shape of the whole 90 minutes tells you something. Theory 2 doesn't fully explain either. Which brings us to Theory 3, the one I think actually accounts for everything we've covered so far. Look at the tactical picture again. Ghana set up in a 4-5-1. Tuchel called it disciplined and physical. That formation isn't an accident or a sign of a weaker team hoping to survive by chance. It's a deliberate plan to deny space, frustrate the opponent's buildup, and look for moments on the counter. 79% possession against you isn't something that happens to a team. It's something a team builds on purpose when the game plan is to sit, absorb, and strike. And the plan very nearly worked completely. Ghana had exactly one shot in the entire match. One. And that one chance, the Fatawu run down the line into Adu, was the single moment in 90 minutes where their defensive structure created a genuine opportunity to win the game outright, not just survive it. That sequence ended with a contested non-call. So now put both pieces together. A defensive game plan that worked for almost the entire match, one window where it nearly turned into an actual result. And in that exact window, the decision went the other way. That's not England dominated and Ghana are sore losers. It's also not simply VAR missed one call. It's that Ghana's entire strategy for the match converged on a single moment, and the margin between draw and win lived inside that one decision. Now let's add the detail that I think deserves more attention than it's gotten. At halftime, before any of this, Bellingham went into a challenge on Ghana's Jerome Opoku that drew a reaction from Queiroz on the touchline. Bellingham was honest about it afterward. He called it himself a silly tackle, saying he was trying to win the ball and followed through a little bit and caught the lad. He said Ghana's bench jumped up trying to get me a yellow card. He wasn't shown one. I want to be precise about what this does and doesn't prove. It doesn't prove a conspiracy. Referees miss things in real time, every match, every league, every level of the game. But it does establish a pattern worth naming honestly. Two separate flashpoints, both involving Ghana players on the end of physical challenges from England players, both decisions, in the moment, going England's way. One of them, the Adu Konsa incident, directly tied to the only real scoring chance Ghana created all match. That's the margins theory, not England were unbeatable, not the officials handed England the result. It's that Ghana built a near-perfect defensive performance, created exactly one window to turn it into 3 points, and lost that window on a contested call. Now, here's where I want you to actually test this theory yourself. The same way I'd ask you to test any explanation in football or anywhere else. You make a prediction, and you check whether the evidence lines up afterward. Both teams are back in action this Saturday against the same opponent, Panama, at the same time, England in East Rutherford, New Jersey, Ghana in Philadelphia. Here's what to watch. First, watch Ghana's setup. If the margins theory is right, expect Ghana to defend in a similarly disciplined, compact shape against Panama, not because they're scared of every opponent, but because this is simply how Queiroz has built this team to play in this tournament. If Ghana suddenly looks completely different, more open, more aggressive in possession, That tells you the England performance was more circumstantial than systemic. Second, watch England's finishing specifically. If Tuchel's red is right, and this was fundamentally a chance conversion problem rather than anything about Ghana specifically, England should create and convert chances at a more normal rate against a different opponent in a different defensive setup. If the same pattern repeats, lots of shots, little to show for it, that's a real red flag heading into the knockout rounds, regardless of who they're facing. Third, and this one's simple, watch whether FIFA's disciplinary or referee oversight processes say anything at all about the Konsadu incident in the days that follow. Federations and confederations don't always comment, but silence after a coach has gone public, this directly is itself informative. If review bodies acknowledge it was close or worth a second look, that supports the margins theory. If nothing is said at all, that tells you the governing bodies consider the on-field decision final and not worth revisiting. Here's the context that frames all of this. Both teams won their opening matches. Ghana beat Panama 1-0. England beat Croatia 4-2. Both arrived at this fixture with momentum. England have never lost to an African nation at a World Cup in 9 meetings, and that streak technically held again here. A draw, not a loss. But didn't lose and deserved to win comfortably are two different sentences, and I think this match sits in the gap between them. So here's your actual homework, if you want to test this for yourself instead of just taking my word for it. Go back and watch the 78th minute sequence, Fatawu's run, the ball to Adu, and Konsa's challenge, frame by frame if you can find the angle. Then watch the Pickford-Adu collision from earlier in the match. Ask yourself honestly whether either of those, on their own, would be a clear penalty if you saw them in isolation, with no context about the rest of the match. Then ask whether your answer changes once you know that sequence was the one moment Ghana's entire game plan produced a real chance to win. I'm not telling you what conclusion to reach. I'm telling you to look at the same two incidents everyone's already arguing about and ask a more specific question than, was VR wrong? Ask whether the margin in this match was always going to come down to exactly one of these two moments, because of how both teams set up to play. What did you see when you watched it? Was Ghana's defense the real story here, or was this just England being wasteful in front of goal? Tell me which theory you land on in the comments, and tell me what you're watching for when both teams play Panama this weekend. I'll see you in the next one.